I arrived 2 hours early to the vineyard lodge. The morning light kissed the trellised rows with gold. The air was clean, still, and brimming with quiet hope. I walked the gravel paths, hands folded behind me, letting the weight of my intentions steady me. This was supposed to mean something. Not grand gestures or second chances, just a chance, finally, to belong without proving. The event space was perfect. I'd chosen everything down to the eucalyptus sprigs on each folded napkin. Matching shirts had been delivered ahead of schedule. Names printed. Roles implied. It was silly, maybe I knew that, but part of me still wanted to believe it might warm something frozen between us. When I opened the box of shirts and saw mine, bold serif font, centered, no irony spared, it didn't feel like a joke. Biggest disappointment. My first thought wasn't anger. It was clarity. There it is, I thought. In print. No one said anything when I put it on. Not Uncle Richard, who'd once called me a cautionary tale with Wi-Fi, nor Jared, my cousin with his wine glass half full and judgment fuller. Melissa giggled. Always the artist, she claimed satire. And the rest? They laughed. That laugh people use to bind discomfort to cruelty and call it just family. My silence must have disappointed them further. I didn't yell. I didn't even frown. I just sat, hands resting lightly beside my plate, and thought about how much parchment weighs when it carries someone else's future. Later, as laughter and camera flashes echoed, I excused myself and walked upstairs to the room I'd rented, the suite with the arched windows and vineyard view. My bag waited. Inside it, a navy folder. Heavy linen paper, signed and sealed documents. No longer. Downstairs they were passing around rows. I returned with the folder. I stood behind my chair. They didn't notice. Until I began tearing. One page, then another. Slow, clean, precise. The kind of silence that fell then wasn't absence. It was exposure. Melissa's mouth opened first. Jared leaned forward. Uncle Richard blinked. Emily, what is that? But I was already walking away. The screen door creaked behind me, and the wind smelled like lavender and endings. The drive back to the city took 3 hours. I didn't play music. I didn't need to. My mind was full, not of voices, but echoes. There's a particular ache that comes from being invisible in a room full of people who say they love you. I used to think maybe I was the problem, too independent, too different too. Not Jared. He always knew how to charm them. The jokes, the stories, the perfectly measured vulnerability that made him the troubled genius. He burned through favours like kindling and was praised for the glow. I built things, quietly. I studied when they said college was a waste. I freelanced when they called it a phase. I coded into the dawn, while Jared slept off hangovers he never had to answer for. I remember the time Uncle Richard gave him money for a film project that turned out to be a week in Tulum. I once asked for a signature to co-sign a lease. Not a penny, just a pen. He said, "You should learn to rely on yourself." So I did. I worked nights, took side gigs, lived in apartments where the walls were so thin I learned to breathe quieter. I built a tutoring app, then a platform, then a business. It grew quietly, like moss on stone. I never told them when the first investor called, or when the second one offered 6 figures, or when I paid off the debt they never knew I had, not because I didn't want to share, because I knew they'd twist it. I watched them from a distance. Jared posting faux philosophical captions about healing while asking me for help behind closed doors. Melissa painting trauma she never lived and selling it under names that weren't hers. Uncle Richard telling anyone who'd listened that I'd always had a chip on my shoulder. And still I tried. I bought them time, space, grace. I paid off the last of Richard's overdue mortgage in secret. I covered Melissa's dental surgery through a silent grant she never traced. I sent Jared a check when he claimed his dog needed surgery. The dog never existed. And yet, the shirt, biggest disappointment, not said, declared, like it was carved into my skin, and the fabric was just a confirmation slip. The thing that broke me wasn't the insult. It was how familiar it felt. They always found a way to laugh at my boundaries, to treat my growth like betrayal, to reduce me to an anecdote while sipping wine I paid for. So I stopped waiting for them to see me. That night at the vineyard, I let them see something else, Loss. And they didn't even understand it yet. I didn't answer the first call. Or the second. I sat in my car outside the vineyard lodge, watching the grapevines shift gently under the breeze like rows of silent witnesses. My hands were still. My heart was not. They would be reading the pieces now, or trying to tape them back together, or maybe, and this is what I hoped for, just slightly, they'd be panicking. There was something beautiful about not having to speak, about letting silence become the loudest thing I'd ever said. By the time I reached the edge of the city, my phone was vibrating non-stop. Voicemails, texts, a group message blinking aggressively like an alarm. I didn't check it. Not yet. Instead, I drove to the one-bedroom apartment I had kept long after I could afford something larger. I unlocked the door, turned on a single lamp, and opened my laptop. My assistant, Lisa, had already followed through. The Forbes feature was live. No commentary, no PR blast, no announcement. Just the headline, the disappointment who paid the bill, how one tech founder quietly funded her family's life for a decade and then walked away. It was elegant. Neutral, factual, brutal. Inside were scanned images of the documents I'd torn at the table, mortgage clearance papers, notarized retirement gifts, prepaid tuition grants. A legal breakdown of the small trust fund I'd set aside for Jared's future daughter, the daughter he claimed he wanted but hadn't met the woman to have her with yet. It was all there, crisp and time-stamped. The feature didn't name them explicitly, but it didn't need to. The dates, the figures, the signatures, everything pointed inward to a family who had been quietly funded by the same woman they'd once called a burden. It went viral by morning. Reddit picked it up. A TikTok commentator read it out loud in 3 stitched parts. A podcast clipped the screen grabs and called it the most polite vengeance ever delivered. Even LinkedIn weighed in. Suddenly, I wasn't just Emily. I was Emily, the T-shirt woman, a meme, a message, a mirror. I stayed silent, but their responses weren't. Melissa posted a filtered photo of the vineyard table, all soft light and empty plates, captioned, "Some people just don't know how to be part of a family. We tried, no names, just implication." Jared tweeted something snide about rebranding trauma for clout. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Uncle Richard made no public statement, but I heard from Jamie, our cousin, who messaged quietly, "He's furious, said you ambushed him, but I always saw how they treated you, just so you know." I replied with 2 words, "Thank you." That night, Lisa called. "They're panicking," she said. "Do you want to respond? Go public?" "No," I said. "They've already told the story." I just showed the footnotes. I watched from a distance as the narrative unraveled. People weren't cruel. They were curious. They reposted quotes from the article. "She funded the family and still got the smallest seat at the table. Not every black sheep is lost. Some just walk away from wolves in sweaters. You don't have to scream to be heard. You just need a paper trail. Then came the apologies. Not from them. From people who remembered me as Emily who dropped out early, or Emily who never came to Christmas, or Emily who was always working. People the first hadn't spoken to in years. I'm sorry I believed what they said. You were always the smart one. We just didn't get it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Then came the backlash, not toward me, but them. Jared lost a hosting gig for a retreat. Someone had emailed the organizer the Forbes article and an old screenshot where he joked about bleeding his cousin dry. Melissa's newest gallery launch was postponed indefinitely after an anonymous tip claimed she'd misrepresented donors. The tip included a financial log, yes, mine, with notes of her expenses cross-checked. And Uncle Richard? His refinance didn't go through. He blamed the market. But I knew. I'd stopped the monthly transfer the bank had been quietly counting as supplementary stability. They didn't fall apart overnight. They unravelled in whispers, in quiet corners of group chats, in missed calls from event planners, and ghosted emails. And still I didn't gloat, because this wasn't revenge, it was release. I had spent years funding the illusion that I was loved, that if I gave enough, supported enough, earned enough eventually, they would see me. They did see me. They just didn't like what that reflection said about them. So they laughed, because it was easier to keep me in the disappointment box than to admit they'd been wrong all along. But now they'd been handed the receipt, signed, dated, public, and I didn't need to say a thing. You'd think silence would be a ceasefire. That after the article, after the screenshots, after the unnerving calm of my departure, they would retreat and rethink. They didn't. Instead, they scrambled to salvage their version of the truth, like people trying to scoop water into a sinking boat with their bare hands. Melissa went first. She posted a carousel of old family photos, golden light filters, nostalgic captions, and one particularly telling line under an image of us at some holiday long forgotten. We tried so hard to include her. Sometimes people don't want to be saved. The comments were full of cooing empathy. You're such a strong sister. Some people just love to play the victim. Don't let her rewrite history. And yet, beneath the curated cheerfulness, I saw the cracks. People tagging the Forbes article, replying with excerpts. One comment simply said, "She didn't rewrite history, she scanned the documents." Then Jared decided to fight fire with delusion. He posted a thread. It began with, "So I guess I'm the villain now." Here's what people don't understand about family. It ended with him claiming I spun a narrative for attention, that I'd always been bitter, that I'd manipulated the truth with money. It might have worked once, but someone dug up a podcast he did 2 years ago, one where he'd laughed about me probably coding my social life into an app, because she doesn't have a real one. Another found a tweet where he called himself the only stable one left in our family, while publicly asking for donations to fund a non-existent short film. Melissa doubled down with an open letter. It was long, dramatic, and full of metaphors. She called me calculating, emotionally absent, and overly transactional. She even described the vineyard moment as a public meltdown in response to a joke that went over her head. Funny how they'd all agreed it was just a joke, and yet each was now writing a separate script to explain it. Uncle Richard? He stayed quiet, publicly, at least. Privately, I heard through Jamie that he was embarrassed but convinced I'd come around. He told a cousin, "Emily just needs space. She always was a little dramatic when she felt excluded." I didn't feel anger reading that. I felt nothing, because by then something fundamental had shifted, not in them, but in me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for their version of me to dissolve. I had built something stronger, not just a company, not just the receipts, but a reality where their voices no longer authored my worth. The most surreal part? They still hadn't apologized. Not really. A few days after Jared's thread flopped, I received a letter, not a text, not an email, a letter hand-delivered to my office by courier. It read, "Dear Emily, we're sorry you felt hurt. That was never our intention. We hope you can move past this and remember that family is forever. Love, Melissa, Jared, and Uncle Richard the first stared at it for a long time. They apologized for how I felt, not for what they did, and wrapped it all in that tired, passive rope. Family is forever. Forever what? Forever dismissive? Forever transactional? No. Family is not forever. Love is not a contract. Loyalty is not debt." I didn't respond. A week later, another message came. This time it was from Jared directly. A photo of the two of us as kids, sitting on a swing set, our legs too short to touch the ground. His caption? "Miss my cousin. Still love her. Always will. A final bid for public redemption." It got likes and tags and comments like, "Wow, growth. You're the bigger person." But that swing in the photo? It was the same one I fell off and broke my arm on when I was 6. Jared had pushed me too hard. I remembered how he told everyone I slipped and how Uncle Richard had believed him. That picture didn't make me nostalgic. It made me certain. I didn't need to reply. Because the person I used to be, the one who would have been shaken by all of this, who would have written long rebuttals, hosted forgiveness brunches, tried one last time, she wasn't here anymore. She'd been replaced, not by vengeance, but by clarity. And that clarity felt like peace. It came in the form of early mornings where I didn't reach for my phone, of walks through farmers' markets where I bought flowers just because, of meetings where I was introduced by name, not by role, not by gossip, not as someone's disappointment. And one evening, maybe a month after everything settled into its new shape, I opened my inbox to find a single message from someone I didn't know. It said, "Thank you for showing people like me that it's okay to walk away. You made me feel less alone." I sat with that for a long time, not because I needed to feel seen, but because it confirmed something I hadn't dared believe, that maybe the story I wrote, with silence, with paper, with walking away, could be something more than mine. It could be someone else's doorway out. 2 years passed, maybe more. I didn't count them. When you're no longer waiting for someone to call, to text, to finally mean what they say, time becomes softer, less like a weight and more like weather. You feel it, but you don't obey it. My life didn't become a fairy tale. There was no cinematic montage of redemption, no applause as I walked into boardrooms or brunches with old friends. But there was calm, a kind of quiet I'd never tasted before. I moved apartments, bought something small, high up, with windows that faced the sky instead of someone else's kitchen. I kept the navy blue folders in a fireproof safe, not out of fear, but preservation. Not everything worth keeping has to be on display. The Vineyard Lodge was booked again this year by a different family. I saw it on the location tag while scrolling one night. There was a photo of a smiling woman in a lavender dress, surrounded by what looked like joy. I didn't feel envy. I felt distance. Lisa, my assistant, still sharp as ever, now worked as chief of operations. I gave her equity and full creative control over our education outreach. She made the mentorship program flourish, the same one I'd created for people like me, overlooked, underestimated, undersupported, now had a wait list longer than our investment pipeline. I stopped checking the social feeds of my past. Not because I didn't care, because I'd outgrown the need to be misunderstood by the same people on a loop. Sometimes I'd still hear things. A cousin I barely knew tagged me in a post once, "We miss you." I didn't reply. They missed the version of me who tolerated things. That version doesn't live here anymore. Other times I'd hear whispers through Jamie, the quiet cousin who reached out when no one else did. Melissa's husband had left. She leaned hard into victimhood, telling mutual friends it was all cancel culture, not the fact that her finances had been quietly held together by the very woman she mocked. He took the kids, moved out of state. Jared lost a small film fellowship. Apparently someone sent the committee the full Forbes piece along with his rebuttal thread. The irony? His biggest success remains the story of the cousin he tried to erase. Uncle Richard applied for another refinance. It didn't go through. Lisa confirmed the bank flagged inconsistent income flow, which, I suppose, is a professional way of saying your golden goose no longer pays your bills. Again, none of this was mine. Not directly. Not intentionally. Just. Consequence. One afternoon, while sipping coffee in the sunlit quiet of my reading nook, I found a box I hadn't opened since the move. Inside were copies of the original documents, the retirement letters, the trust deeds, the tuition confirmations. Unripped. Clean. Real. I ran my hand across the thick cream-coloured parchment. Not with sadness, but something quieter, something like grace. They didn't feel like wasted effort. They felt like a version of myself I no longer owed. That woman, the one who believed love had to be earned with proof, sacrifice, and silence, had done her best. She tried to buy peace, tried to code her way into approval, tried to earn what should have been given freely. And when it wasn't, she walked away. That was her victory. Mine was different. Mine was waking up one morning and realizing I hadn't thought of them in weeks. Mine was laughter, unforced, full-throated, in the middle of a recipe disaster with a friend who'd shown up every time. Mine was not needing to explain myself to anyone anymore. And then there was this moment I was at a friend's wedding, one of the rare ones where the vows weren't rehearsed perfection, but raw, shaky declarations of truth. The reception was in a small barn, lights strung like constellations, people dancing badly and happily. Someone introduced me to their cousin, a woman with dark curls and a nervous smile. She shook my hand, then paused. "Wait," she said. "Are you the t-shirt woman?" I blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. "Yeah," I said. "That was me." She hugged me. Not out of fandom, but recognition. She leaned back, eyes full, voice low. "I left too," she whispered. "My parents. I couldn't do it anymore. Your story helped me believe I wasn't crazy." And in that moment, it all made sense. Every ripped page, every sleepless night, every carefully folded silence, it had reached someone who needed it. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, not forgiving what never apologized, but becoming a lighthouse by accident, just by surviving the storm in your own way. So no, I didn't go back. And no, they never called again. But somewhere, someone else left the table and found peace waiting outside. Story 2. You know how some people say sibling rivalry fades with age? Yeah, not in my case. I'm Ava. I'm 27 and I have a younger sister, Chloe, who just turned 26. We've been at each other's throats for as long as I can remember. Think passive-aggressive smiles over birthday cakes, eye rolls at family dinners, and a whole lot of "she started it" energy. Classic sisters, maybe, except Chloe isn't just annoying, she's manipulative, entitled, and, for some reason, the sun around which my parents' world revolves. It all came to a head 1 week before her wedding. Let me rewind a bit. Chloe and I have always been compared. We're close in age and went to the same high school. had overlapping friend groups, even dated within the same social circle whether we wanted to or not. My parents didn't help. They thought pushing us together would magically make us best friends. Spoiler alert, it didn't. They ended up fostering a low-key Hunger Games dynamic instead. The first major crack in our already fragile sisterhood showed up back in high school when she tried to flirt with my prom date. He told me about it nervously, awkwardly, and that was the moment I realized she didn't just want attention, she wanted mine. Fast forward to the present. Chloe had been with her fiancé, Daniel, for 5 years. He was a genuinely good guy, soft-spoken, respectful, emotionally intelligent, and way too nice for her. He worked in non-profit management, volunteered on weekends, and somehow thought Chloe was his soulmate. A miracle, really. I didn't interfere. Not when they first got together. Not when he proposed during their 5-year anniversary party. I kept my distance. Sure, I heard the rumours about Chloe still being active on dating apps, casually introducing herself as single at networking events, even allegedly going on dates while engaged. But it was all hearsay. And honestly, I was so used to being painted as the bitter older sister that I kept my mouth shut. But then Chloe crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It started innocently enough. My boyfriend Ben and I had been dating for 2 years. We started as friends, and our relationship was the healthiest thing I'd ever experienced. So when I brought him to our usual weekend family dinners, it wasn't a casual move. I was serious about him. My parents knew, Chloe knew, and that was exactly why she made her move. It happened during a family pre-wedding dinner, a final celebratory evening before Chloe's big day. Both families were there. Everything looked perfect on the surface: smiles, toasts, overly salty catered food. I had stepped outside to take a breather when I heard voices in the kitchen. At first, I didn't think much of it, but something in the tone too soft, too flirty caught my attention. So I peeked in. And there she was, Chloe, pinning Ben against the counter, literally. He looked uncomfortable, like physically recoiling, trying not to breathe. And she was saying something that made my stomach turn. "If you ever get tired of Ava, you know where to find me." That wasn't a misunderstanding. That wasn't playful teasing. That was predatory. I stepped into the kitchen, arms crossed, voice sharp. She didn't even flinch, just smirked and walked out, brushing past me like I didn't exist. Ben, bless him, looked mortified. He immediately started explaining himself, but he didn't have to. I saw everything I needed to see. This wasn't new behaviour. Chloe had done this kind of thing before with exes, friends, acquaintances. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But this time, this was a week before her wedding. And my patience? Gone. I told my mum. That was my first mistake. She listened, blinked, then quietly begged me not to say anything. "Just let the wedding happen," she said. "You can deal with your issues afterward. My issues, I expected disappointment, but not that level of denial. I wasn't the one jeopardizing a marriage. I was the one trying to stop it from being a lie. And yet, somehow, I was the problem. Ben and I left early that night. The ride home was mostly quiet until he said something that changed everything. He had video. Apparently, his phone had accidentally started recording while in his pocket during that kitchen encounter. The audio wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. Her voice, her words, his obvious discomfort. So I wrote an email. A polite, detailed, not at all spiteful email. I told Daniel what had happened, attached the video, and because I'm nothing if not thorough, also added a few of those old rumours from Chloe's dating app days. Names, screenshots, everything I'd been sitting on for months. Then I hit send. I expected chaos. What I got? Silence. No response from Daniel. No call from Chloe, not even a "how dare you" text from my mum. Just nothing. For a week, it was like the world kept spinning without noticing I had dropped a bomb. Until the wedding day. Everyone showed up, smiling, laughing. Chloe looked radiant. Daniel, calm as ever. I started to think maybe he hadn't read the email. Maybe he'd seen it and decided to ignore it. Maybe Chloe had somehow explained it away. Then came the ceremony. Chloe said her vows. Tearful, dramatic. Over the top, as expected. Then it was Daniel's turn, and he didn't say vows. He pulled out a piece of paper, started reading from it. Word for word, he recited my email. Then he played the audio. It echoed through the venue, bouncing off flower arrangements and shocked gasps. And when it was done, he calmly said, I waited a week. I spoke to people. And it turns out, it wasn't just a rumour. Chloe, this is who you are. I hope you understand why I can't go through with this. Then he walked away. Silence. Total, absolute silence. Chloe froze. Her face drained of colour. Then came the meltdown tears, shrieks, mascara-streaked fury. Guests sat stunned. Some left, some stayed for the free lunch. I grabbed Ben's hand and walked out, pulse still hammering in my ears. I wish I could say that was the end. But of course there's always fallout. You know that feeling right after an earthquake when the shaking stops, but everything around you still feels unstable? That's exactly what the next few days felt like. Chloe's wedding didn't just fall apart, it exploded in front of 2 full families, old college friends, co-workers, plus an entire table of her ex-boyfriends she'd weirdly invited for nostalgia. The moment Daniel walked out, the air shifted. People stood there, not sure if they were supposed to clap, cry, or eat the salmon. Ben and I didn't stick around for the awkward buffet. We slipped out as soon as it was clear Chloe wasn't going to recover enough to continue pretending everything was fine. Honestly, I felt a weird mix of relief and heartbreak. Not for her, but for what this meant for my family. I knew the calls were coming, and sure enough, they started that night. My mum called first. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was sharp. No hi, no small talk, just straight to the point. You really sent that video, didn't you? I didn't lie. Yeah, I did. She was quiet for a second, then hit me with the classic. You've always been jealous of your sister. There it was. I could have laughed, but I was too tired, too numb. She went on about how I'd humiliated the family, ruined Chloe's future, how this would follow her forever. And you know what she didn't mention? The truth. What Chloe did, who she hurt. At one point she said this could have been handled privately. I said, I tried. And that's when she told me not to come by for a while. That maybe it was best if we didn't talk for now. I hung up without another word. I sat there afterward, staring at the phone, trying to feel something other than betrayal. You'd think after years of this kind of dynamic, I'd be used to it. But there's something about your own mother choosing silence over accountability that really hits you in the chest. Ben was great though. He made tea, sat beside me without trying to fix anything, and just let me be pissed. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone who doesn't try to turn pain into a lesson. In the days that followed, Chloe did what Chloe does best. She rewrote the story. I started hearing from mutuals that she was telling people I sabotaged her out of spite, that I seduced Daniel first and was obsessed with breaking them up. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level, but the people who mattered, they knew. Daniel's silence broke a week later. He emailed me. I'll admit, I didn't know what to expect. I braced for blame, or worse, some kind of weird apology for apologising like I appreciate it, but you should have stayed out of it. But his message was short, grateful, clear. He said thank you. He told me he'd seen red flags before missed dates, Lies that didn't add up, but he always chalked it up to wedding stress. He admitted that, deep down, he'd been afraid to ask questions because he already suspected the answers. And seeing the video, hearing her voice, watching how she behaved when she thought no one was watching, that was the final click. He didn't care about my motives, said it didn't matter if I hated Chloe or wanted revenge. What mattered was that I told the truth when no one else would. That message, I didn't know how much I needed it until I read it. It was like someone finally acknowledged that I wasn't crazy or bitter or making stuff up, just trying to protect someone decent from being tied to a sinking ship. Of course, it didn't magically fix things with my family. After the wedding blew up, my parents doubled down on Chloe. She moved back in with them, and from what I heard, she was playing the victim full-time, crying a lot, posting vague Instagram quotes about betrayal. You know, the usual, some people just can't handle your shine. I didn't reach out. I blocked her number and muted my mum's updates. The thing is, I didn't do any of this expecting applause. I just wanted peace. Ben and I moved on with our lives. We got engaged 2 months later, nothing dramatic, no viral videos. Just us on a weekend trip, a quiet ring, and a question that felt like home. I didn't invite my parents to the engagement party. Didn't even tell them it was happening. Word got around, though. My aunt congratulated me on Facebook. A few cousins sent nice messages. But from mum and dad, silence. At first, I thought it would break me. It didn't. What hurt more was realizing how long I'd been begging for their approval without realizing I didn't even want it anymore. I wanted respect, honesty, fairness, and they couldn't give that not to me. So I stopped waiting. Chloe's wedding may have been called off, but mine won't be. Because I'm not building a life on secrets and drama. I'm building it with someone who stood up for me, who got trapped in the middle of someone else's chaos and still said, "I've got your back." People still ask if I regret sending that email. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I didn't. Maybe Daniel would have found out later. Maybe never. Maybe he'd be locked in a miserable marriage, wondering why things felt off. Or maybe he'd still be pretending, just like Chloe. But me? I'd be sitting with the knowledge that I could have prevented that and didn't. So no, I don't regret it. Not even a little. 3 months. That's how long it's been since Chloe's wedding that wasn't. Since Daniel walked off the altar, and my parents told me I'd ruined everything. Since I stopped answering calls I used to wait for. 3 months isn't long in the grand scheme of things. But when you've spent most of your life tied up in a toxic family dynamic, it's long enough to start breathing differently. Ben and I finally settled into our new place. It's not fancy, small 2-bedroom with old creaky floors and a kitchen window that opens just enough to let the morning light in. But it's ours. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm living in a home, not a battlefield. We hosted our engagement party last weekend. Nothing big. Just close friends, a few co-workers, Ben's sister and her wife. We grilled outside, played music, drank way too much wine, and laughed until our faces hurt. At one point, Ben stood up, clinked his glass, and said, "I'm just glad she didn't run when she saw how weird my family is." Everyone laughed, but I knew what he really meant. I'd seen enough dysfunction to fill a book, and yet I chose this him, us. I didn't think I'd hear from Daniel again, but 2 weeks ago he emailed me a final time. This one was longer, a little raw. He told me he'd started therapy. He said he wanted to understand how he could have ignored so many signs, how he let himself fall for someone who had no real interest in love, only control. He didn't mention Chloe much, but the way he wrote, you could tell he was finally starting to see clearly. He also said something that stuck with me. I think I was more afraid of admitting I was being lied to than actually being lied to. That hit me. Because yes, same. That fear of confrontation, of shattering the illusion, whether it's a relationship or a family, or even a fake smile across a dinner table, it's real. And sometimes it's easier to play along than deal with the fallout. But once you cross that line, once you speak the truth out loud, there's no going back. And maybe that's the point. He thanked me again. Said he hoped I got everything I deserved. I hope he does too. As for Chloe, she's doing what Chloe does. Posting gym selfies with motivational captions like leveling up, no distractions, just vibes. There was even a picture with a new guy, some finance bro, who probably thinks she's mysterious and deep. I give it 4 months, tops. We don't talk. My parents haven't reached out since the day they told me to take a break from the family. At first, I wanted to fight that, to argue, to explain, to make them see me. But I'm done chasing people who only see me when I'm quiet and compliant. You want to believe blood means something, that family bonds are unbreakable. But sometimes it's the people closest to you who do the most damage and expect the least accountability. And you know what? I'm done carrying that weight. I spent years trying to make peace with people who never gave me any. Now, I choose peace by walking away. It's weird grieving people who are still alive. But that's what this feels like mourning a version of my family that only existed in my head. The one where my parents were fair, where Chloe was just a bratty sister, not a walking landmine. Where I could come home and not brace myself before walking through the door. That family never existed. And that's okay, because the life I'm building now, it's real. Ben and I sat down last week and picked a wedding date. It's next spring, nothing huge, just a cozy outdoor ceremony, small guest list, and lots of dancing under string lights. No drama, no performance. Just the people who've shown up for us consistently, without conditions. I'm not inviting my parents. I've gone back and forth on it. Thought about sending a message or writing a letter or even giving them the option to come, but I know how that would go. Chloe would show up. My mum would act like nothing ever happened. My dad would make awkward small talk and pretend not to pick sides. And I'm not creating space for that anymore. If they ever want to truly reconnect, they know where to find me. But it won't be through guilt, denial, or fake apologies. It'll have to start with the truth. And until then, I'm good. I'm healing. I'm in love with someone who sees me clearly and stays anyway. And most of all, I'm free. Funny how a single video, a single email can unravel years of buried pain. But sometimes you have to burn the bridge just to see who was really on your side to begin with. I didn't do what I did out of jealousy. I did it because I was tired of pretending, tired of watching good people get hurt, tired of letting someone else's chaos dictate my peace. If that makes me the bad guy in their story, fine. In mine, I'm finally the main character. And this time, the ending's mine to write. Story 3. I never thought I'd become that person, the one who sets hard boundaries with their family and means it. But here we are. I'm Cara, 35, and this mess started almost 2 decades ago when I was just 16. Back then, I started dating Liam, my older brother Marcus's best friend. We were together all through high school. It was serious in that naive teenage, this is forever kind of way. But when he proposed after graduation, I panicked. I said no, I didn't want to get married. I wanted to go to college, study abroad, explore. I wasn't ready, and I told him that gently. He didn't take it gently. Neither did my family. Liam was practically a fixture in our home. Everyone loved him. My brother was caught in the middle, but it was my younger sister, Nina 32, who took it the hardest. You'd think I dumped her. Nina became relentless, obsessed really with the idea that Liam and I were soulmates, like our breakup was just a temporary misunderstanding that needed her matchmaking magic to fix. A year after I broke things off, Nina started dating Liam's brother, Owen. That sealed it. She decided we were all meant to be one big happy family. She kept pushing for me to make things right with Liam, like rejecting a teenage proposal made me some kind of villain. To keep the peace, I didn't say much. Liam still came to family events. He was still Marcus's friend. Fine, but then Nina escalated. She started sneaking him into vacations, booking him into the same hotel room as me for old time's sake. Blind dates that turned into surprise ambushes with Liam. It stopped being passive-aggressive and turned just aggressive. Finally, I had enough. I sat my parents down and begged them to step in. They talked to Marcus and Nina. Liam's invitations stopped, slightly. Marcus backed off. Nina did not. The final straw came during my semester abroad in Ireland. That's where I met Alex. We were both studying there, him from another university, same country. I don't know how else to say it, it just clicked. Effortless. Fun. Kind. Safe. After a year together, we got engaged. I was 27. My parents were thrilled. Marcus gave Alex his blessing. Even my dad, who always loved Liam, told me he could see how happy I was. But Nina? Oh no. She said I was in the honeymoon phase, that I'd snap out of it. She was convinced I'd wake up one day, regret everything, and go crawling back to Liam like some rom-com heroine. I didn't. And I wasn't quiet about my boundaries anymore. After one too many accidental run-ins with Liam, and some pretty disturbing comments from Nina, I told her straight, if she pulled another stunt trying to reunite me with my ex, we were done. No contact. Final. You'd think that'd be the end of it, right? Nope. Instead, Nina made me her maid of honor. That alone wasn't weird, we were still technically talking, but then came the kicker. She made Liam a groomsman. She demanded I spend every second of the bachelorette weekend with the bridal party. Oh, and one of her friends decided to get cozy with my then fiancé Alex at the reception. We found out that Nina told this woman Alex was exploring and that it was okay because we weren't married yet. Like marriage was the only line that mattered, like my actual relationship wasn't real. I left the wedding early. The next day, I made the call I never thought I would. I told my parents and Marcus I was done with Nina. They could have a relationship with her or with me. I wouldn't make them choose, but I wouldn't tolerate another ounce of meddling or manipulation. To my surprise, Marcus supported me. My dad did too. My mum tried to negotiate. She didn't see why I couldn't just let it go. 2 weeks later, I blocked Nina on everything. I haven't spoken a word to her since. That was 6 years ago. Fast forward to now, and things were mostly peaceful. Nina still tried to send gifts, emails, cards. I ignored all of them. Family gatherings were a quiet game of pretending she wasn't even there. Eventually, she stopped trying to provoke me in public when no one takes your side. It loses its impact. Then came the turning point. A few weeks ago, I shared the news with my family. I'm pregnant. Our first baby. A girl. It's not the first grandchild, but it's the first granddaughter. Everyone was thrilled except Nina. Her face dropped like she'd just tasted something sour. My mum noticed. She invited me for tea a few days later. My gut told me not to go. But I wanted to believe she was finally coming around. That maybe she wanted to make peace. Just the two of us. When I pulled into the driveway and saw Nina's car, my stomach twisted. Inside, it was worse. Not just Nina, but also Owen, Liam, and Liam's mum, yeah. Apparently, they'd all gathered for what my mum called an intervention. They said my childish tactics had gone on long enough. That Liam was just trying to be romantic, that Nina had apologized already, so I needed to get over it, that I was hurting family by keeping the grudge. Then Owen had the nerve to say, "You're about to be a mum. Maybe you should start acting like one." I didn't speak. I just texted Marcus, my dad, and Alex. Marcus arrived first. I'd never seen him that angry. He grabbed my stuff, helped me up, and said one sentence I'll never forget: "I'm ashamed of every single person in this room." We left. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't cry until I got to the car. That night, I wrote an email. Calm, clear, legal. To everyone involved, except my mum, I sent my lawyer's contact and informed them that if they ever contacted me again, I'd go to the police. And I meant it. After the intervention, I thought things might calm down. They didn't. Turns out cutting people off doesn't mean they stop trying, it just means they get more creative. My mum started playing both sides. She'd text me sweet things like "thinking of you, hope you're resting," while telling others I was being dramatic, cold, hormonal. And the worst part? She still didn't get why I was upset. We had one conversation a few days after the ambush. I laid it all out again. I told her that having Liam there, letting Nina hijack my pregnancy, and reading me some guilt-drenched letter about family unity wasn't loving. It was manipulative. It made me feel like I was 16 again, being told my feelings were too much, she cried. Said she didn't know it would escalate like that. Said she just wanted her daughters to be close. I told her if she ever blindsided me like that again, we'd be done for good. She said she understood, but deep down, I knew she didn't. Not really. Marcus and Dad stood firm. No more playing nice with Nina. No more guilt trips. Marcus even started distancing himself from Owen, which was huge. They'd been close for years, but this broke something. Still, the damage was done. My pregnancy, which should have been joyful, felt like a battleground. Every doctor's visit, every ultrasound, every little kick, I found myself wondering if I was being too harsh. Then I'd remember the look on Owen's face when he told me I was the one being immature, and it'd all come flooding back. Nina didn't stop either. She started spreading rumours, telling people Alex was isolating me, that he was controlling and wouldn't let me see my family, that he was jealous of Liam and that's why I went no contact. It was laughable. Alex was the one holding me every night when I cried. He was the one who told me, over and over again, "You're not crazy. You're allowed to protect yourself." God, I love that man. We'd always planned to keep the baby's name and gender private until after 20 weeks. We'd lost one before, and it shook us. This time, we just wanted peace. But when we finally told our parents it was a girl, my mum acted thrilled at first. Then she asked if Nina could maybe be the godmother. I laughed. She didn't. When I said absolutely not, she looked heartbroken. And I know this sounds cruel, but I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. Because what she wanted, what Nina wanted, wasn't a relationship. It was access. Control. A week later, she proved it. Alex and I had just gotten back from the OB when I saw the car, my mum's and Nina's. They were in my driveway. I froze. I called Marcus, then my sister-in-law, who lived 10 minutes away. She drove over like a bat out of hell and walked straight up to them. "You need to leave. Now. Or I'll call the police." Apparently, they'd convinced our cleaning lady, who didn't know any better, to let them in. They were inside, touching my things. Nina was in my kitchen, acting like she lived there. I didn't even walk in. I just waited outside until they were gone. Later that night, my blood pressure spiked. I ended up in the ER. It was the wake-up call we didn't know we needed. We changed everything. New phones, new emails, security cameras. My dad moved in temporarily. We stayed with friends while we scouted for a new place. We even found a GPS tracker hidden in our dog's vest. Yeah, our dog. That's when I realized this wasn't just boundary crossing anymore. This was stalking. Alex filed a police report. We got a restraining order in motion against both Nina and Liam. My lawyer sent them cease and desist letters, made it clear that continued contact would lead to criminal charges. The fallout was immediate. Nina melted down, publicly. Posted some cryptic TikTok video about family betrayal and being erased. Liam reposted it, of course. My mum sent Marcus a long, rambling email about how we turned the whole family against her. That's when my dad made his move. He filed for divorce. I didn't expect that, none of us did. But apparently, that ambush was his last straw too. He packed up, moved in with Marcus for a bit, and started the legal process. Said he couldn't support someone who endangered his daughter and unborn grandchild. I cried when he told me. Not out of sadness, but relief. Like someone finally saw me. We finally moved into a new place last month. It's small, cozy, perfect. There's a little guest suite out back where my dad now lives full-time. My nephews visit often. My sister-in-law has become my closest friend. We even made a shared calendar for cousin events so the kids can grow up together without all the drama. I still get sad sometimes. I miss my mum. Or maybe I miss the version of her I thought existed. The one who baked cookies with me on Sunday nights. The one who called me my sunshine girl when I was little. But the mum who let my sister and ex into my house? Who stood there while I was ambushed? I don't miss her. I've started therapy. So has Marcus. My dad, too. We're healing slowly, but honestly. We don't avoid hard conversations anymore. We talk, we listen, we grow. Nina and Liam, still together in whatever fantasy world they've built. I hear she still tries to get invited to family events. She's not anymore. My lawyer made sure of that. By the time our daughter was born, everything had changed. Not just where we lived or who we spoke to, but the way we saw the world. The way I saw myself. She came in the early morning, wrapped in silence, then the softest cry I've ever heard. Alex held her like she was the only thing that mattered, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not just protected safe. The kind of safety that comes from knowing no one can take your peace away again. We didn't tell anyone, except a handful of people. Just my dad, Marcus, his wife, my sisters-in-law. We'd learned our lesson. Trust was no longer something we gave away just because someone shared our blood. Still, Nina tried to find us. Someone slipped, said something to a mutual friend. That friend called Nina, and within a week, we started getting weird messages again. Messages that sounded like love but read like control. She deserves to know her aunt. I know you're just scared. We can fix this. It never ends with her. It's always about fixing things, never about owning what she did. Then came the Instagram post. A video, sad music, slow zoom on old family photos. My mum staring out a window, like a saint in mourning. The caption said something like, "When your daughter shuts you out of her life, but you still light a candle for her every night." I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. Just tired. Alex sent it straight to our lawyer. So did my dad. That same week, we got a letter 12 pages, handwritten, double-sided. From Liam, my lawyer read it. Told me it was filled with delusions. He still believed we had some kind of unfinished love story, that Alex sabotaged our bond, that deep down I'd always be his. He said I owed him closure. Let me be clear, I owe that man nothing. He was obsessed with an idea of me I outgrew when I was 18. He never saw me as a person, just a part of his future. Nina kept feeding that fantasy because she needed him. Not as a partner, but as a ticket, a bridge back to me. I don't think she ever wanted me back because she missed me. I think she just couldn't stand being shut out, being told no. And my mum? She crossed a line she can't uncross. One day, while I was out running errands, she and Nina showed up at my house again. They convinced the cleaning lady, who still didn't know better, to let them in. By the time I got back, they were inside, acting like they belonged. I never even stepped out of the car. I called my sister-in-law, and she came in 10 minutes. Told them to leave or we'd file charges for trespassing. They left, but that night my blood pressure spiked so high I was rushed to the hospital. The baby was okay, but I wasn't. That's when my dad lost it. He stormed into their old house, now mostly empty, and took everything that was his. Told my mum she almost killed his grandchild. Told her he didn't want to speak to her again. He wasn't bluffing. He moved into our guest house permanently, cut off all contact, even changed his will, left a trust for Nina's son, but gave her nothing else. Nothing more than a token out of legal necessity. He said, "She can hate me, but she will never hurt you again." The funny thing is, after all that chaos, the world got quieter. Our home became our sanctuary. My daughter's laugh filled the rooms. My dad became the best babysitter on earth. Marcus brought his kids over 3 times a week. My sisters-in-law built a little cousin club, complete with activity calendars and dress-up parties. We built something good. And maybe that's the point. For so long, I thought I had to fix everything. That forgiveness was expected. That peace meant pretending. But now, I see it differently. Peace is knowing who your people are and letting the rest go. It's locking your front door and not looking back. It's telling your daughter you never have to beg to be loved. It's watching your husband, tired but beaming, rock your baby to sleep, and knowing that this small, quiet life is the kind of happy you fought for. I still miss my mum sometimes. The version of her I believed in, but grief doesn't mean regret. It just means you're healing. As for Liam, he lost more than me. He lost his job too. After he kept pushing that, I was hiding his child, yes, seriously. Alex finally snapped and contacted his employer. Shared everything, letters, screenshots, police reports. Liam was suspended pending investigation, then let go. His reputation, gone. My lawyer says we could press more charges, but I haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to just let the silence do the work. Sometimes the best revenge is just moving on. We recently bought a new house, a little bigger with a garden out back. My dad moved into the guest house again, this time by choice. We all agreed space is good, but family dinners? They're sacred now. And this time, no one sits in silence pretending everything's fine. The other day, Marcus's oldest asked me if my baby will ever meet the other grandma. I said, "Not everyone who shares your blood deserves your love. But we love you enough to give you all the truth." He nodded. Smart kid. We spent the afternoon building a fort in the living room and pretending it was a rocket ship. We launched it to the moon, packed snacks, wore cardboard helmets. My baby squealed every time we made a whoosh. Life isn't perfect, but it's good, it's mine. I don't know what the future holds with my mum or Nina. I've stopped trying to predict it. The only thing I know for sure, they lost me. And I'm okay with that. Because I didn't just lose a sister or a mother, I found myself. And this version of me, she doesn't beg. She doesn't chase. She builds. She protects what matters. She chooses peace over and over again. And if that's the cost of being the cold one, the dramatic one, the selfish one, so be it. Because at the end of the day, My daughter will grow up knowing what love looks like, real love. Not the kind that twists or manipulates. Not the kind that demands loyalty without care. But the kind that holds you when the world shakes. That's the only legacy I care about now.